Today I'm going to show you how to make this beaded bead necklace and a pair of earrings. This is using the midnight blue treasure bag. However, you do not have to have that treasure bag. These are all very common, easily found beads, and you can do this tutorial regardless. I do have some of these pendants and I will list them if you would like some. However, you don't have to have a pendant. You can just make the beaded beads that I'm going to show you how to make and string them however you would like. It turns out really cute. The beaded beads are really easy to make, and don't feel left out if you don't have the treasure bag. You can do this. So I'm going to show you what it looks like close up. These are the little beaded beads we're going to make, and I've used some cubes. Really pretty. It turns out really nice. Here's the earrings. Well, maybe. Real simple, cute, and pretty quick moving project. So this is what we're going to make, and let's go ahead and look at the material list for this project. Okay, for this project today we're going to be using several things from the midnight blue treasure bag. We are also going to be adding to the midnight blue treasure bag. So this is what we're going to be using for this project. From the bag, we're going to use this little pendant. It's a leaf shape, and it has a little pinch bail with rhinestone on it. I do have some more of these, so I'll get those listed if you're interested in those. Otherwise, just use whatever you want for a pendant, or just learn how to make the beaded bead we're going to make and just string those however you want. You don't have to do it the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to use this pendant. Then I'm going to use the 6mm crystal cubes that you have in your bag. We have 16 of them, and they're a light blue color. So we're going to be using those, and again, you can use whatever you'd like to string your beaded beads together if you'd like. Then we're going to be using, for the beaded bead, we're going to be using the 4mm round faceted little black beads that are in, let me let that clear up, there we go. So you can see it has the little round facets on it. We're going to be using about 64 of those. So pretty much your whole strand. And then we have a strand of this clear, half black plated 4mm rounds. We'll be stringing as a filler on the necklace with these. And again, you can use anything 4mm round you'd like. You do not have to have these beads, not in these colors, whatever. You can use whatever you'd like. Then we're going to be using some 11O and 2 colors of 8O seed beads. These are all Toho. I have an 8O and an 11O in nickel plate, and then I have a blue turquoise color in my Toho. So the last one I used was an actual turquoise. This is a blue turquoise, and it's like that robin's egg blue. So I'm going to be using that because it goes a little bit better with my colors here than the actual turquoise. And then I'm going to be using some bead caps. Now, you don't have to have bead caps for this if you don't want to. I'm using some platinum tone simply because of my pinch bail is platinum tone. I did find a whole bunch of these that I can list. If you want some, I'll list them, and that's all good. Or if you already purchased some of the gunmetal color ones, that works okay with platinum too, so you can use those. But I'm going to use these silver tone ones. They're kind of a flower, star shape, something like that. And like I said, I'll list them, so if you want some, you can get some. And then I'm going to be using this platinum tone clasp. You can use any clasping you want. You can use the clasp in the box if you'd like. I just decided that since everything's kind of platinum in this and I'm not mixing any of the gunmetal tone really, I will go ahead and just use a platinum from my stash. And I do have out some actual gunmetal color crimp tubes because I think it'll blend in fine. And these are what I had handy. So this is a size 2 crimp tube, and I'll be using 2 of those. And then some soft flex beading wire, and this is a medium. And let me get you in close so you can see the measurements on it. It is 0.019 inch or 0.48 millimeters. That's what I'm using, and this is Soft Flex Medium. And then I'm going to be using some Fireline, 8-pound Fireline, and I am going to use this because it's smoke color, and I'm going to be using black beads. So you can use 6-pound Fireline also, or you can use 8 or 10-pound nanofill. It's just this is what I have available in the smoke color, so that's what I'm using. You can use a size 10 or a size 12 beading needle, and you're going to want to put an arm's length on. We're going to use several arm's length because we're going to make several beaded beads first, and then we will string it all together. So what I'm measuring as a arm's length is I'm putting the thread about to where my collarbone and my shoulder meet, and then I'm measuring it to my fingertips along the length of my arm. And that's what I'm calling an arm's length. Just a couple feet is all you need, and you'll need that 8 times. So let's go ahead and get started with this project. We are going to start by making some beaded beads to string onto this necklace. So if you just want to make beaded beads and just string them on any way you want, that'll work fine too. So how we're going to start it is we are going to pick up a 4mm round, an 8/0 seed bead, a 4mm round, and an 8/0 seed bead onto our needle, just like this. Then we're going to bring it down to the end, and then we're going to, you don't have to leave a long tail, just enough to hold on to, and then we're going to go through the first 4mm round, hold on to your tail, hold on to that bead, and pull your thread until you can pull both the tail and the working thread together, and you get something that looks like this. Then we are just going to sew back through all of these beads. So I'm coming out of this 4mm round here. I'm going to go up into this 8/0 seed bead, and make sure you don't pull real tight as you come through, because you'll just pull your thread through at this point. Then come through the next bead and the next one, and here we're going to tie a knot with the tail and the working thread, because they should be right next to each other now. So just tie a little overhand knot, or you can do a surgeon's knot, actually holds better. Just go through the loop twice with your tail and pull this down, making sure that the knot goes down between the beads and not on top of them, just like this. And then we are coming out of the area where the knot is, so we need to go down into the bead right next to it. So I'm going to go into this 8/0 seed bead right here. Then I'm going to turn my project, and I'm going to go into the 4mm round, and then I'm going to go into this 8/0 to start it. So our next unit, this is just a right angle weave stitch. We're just using 2 different sizes of beads. So we're coming out of this 8/0 here. We need to pick up 3 beads because we're sharing this bead. Each unit has 4 beads. We're sharing the 8/0. So all we have to do is pick up 2 of our 4mm rounds and 1 8/0, alternating them. So we pick up a 4mm round, then we pick up an 8/0, and then we pick up a 4mm round. And we go back into the opposite side of the 8/0 seed bead we're coming out of, right here. And just pull these down. I'm going to turn it so I can sew back through all 4 of these beads and secure them. So I'm going to go up through this 4mm round right next to where I'm coming out of the 8/0, and I'm going to pull this down. And then just go through all of the beads. So I'll go through this 8/0, then I'll go through this 4mm round, and then I'll go through the 8/0 we've attached to. Now we're going to work our way over to the 8/0 seed bead so we can do another unit. So we have to go through this 4mm round right here. And then we will go through the 8/0 seed bead. Then we are going to pick up a 4mm round, an 8/0 seed bead, and a 4mm round. Just like this. And we're going to go into the opposite side of the 8/0 we're coming out of. And again, we're going to sew around and secure this unit. So just go into the 4mm round right next to the 8/0 you're coming out of. Go into the 8/0 and the 4mm round and the 8/0 that you're connecting to. Now we again have to sew over to this bead so that we can make our next unit, which will connect this side and this side together. So we're coming out of this 8/0, we're going to sew down into this 4mm round bead right here. Then we're going to sew into this 8/0 seed bead right here. Now we are going to connect this together and make it round. So we're coming out of this 8/0 here. All we have to do, if we have an 8/0 here and we have an 8/0 here, all we have to do is add 2 4mm rounds on either side. So we'll pick up a 4mm round, perhaps, come here, bead, and then we'll go from this 8/0 to this 8/0 on the same side we're coming out of this 8/0. So don't cross over, just go into the same side, fold these in half, and pull this bead down, just like that. Just move your tail out of the way, and this is what you should have. It's probably kind of hard to see. Let's even get a little bit closer. And then we're going to pick up another 4mm round. We're coming out of this 8/0, we're going to go into this 8/0, straight across on the same side, just like this. Now we have another unit and we've connected everything together, but we have to secure it. So we're coming out of this 8/0, we're going to sew through this 4mm round here, and then into the 8/0 here, and then into the 4mm round here, and then into the 8/0 here. And we have successfully made a little round unit. Now I want to get a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to cut this tail down a little bit just to get it out of my way. We'll burn it down when we're finished here, so you want to have a lighter handy. And what we're going to do is, now that we're coming out, after we've secured, we're coming out of this 8/0 seed bead, we're going to go up into this 4mm round right here, right next to where your thread is coming out. You're just going to hop up into that bead. Make sure you have everything tight and neat, and I think I'm going to go ahead and just burn this down. So I have 8/0s, it's pretty big, it's not going to block it. So I'm just going to burn that down, let it roll in, and I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. So I'm coming out of this 4mm round bead here. I'm going to go directly into the next 4mm round with an 11/0, just like this, and pull it together. Now using black beads, it's kind of hard to see, but if I hold my unit up to where I have my 4 black beads on top, I can see I put my 11/0 here. I'm coming out of this 4mm round. I can go directly into my next one. So I'm going to pick up another 11/0 seed bead and go directly into my next 4mm round and pull this down and pop it in there. And then again, we're going to go into the very next 4mm round and pop that in there. I'll get you real close for one more time just to make sure you can see exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going to pick up an 11/0 and go directly into the next 4mm round and the seed bead after it, so the 11/0 after it. Now this is what I have. I'm going to sew through all of these beads again to secure them. So I'm coming out of this 11/0, I'll go ahead and go into the next 2 beads, so the 4mm round and the 8/0 seed bead, and just continue going through all the beads on top here. And give a little tug after you go through each set so that you will get some nice tension on this, just like this. Now I'm all the way around. What I'm going to do is, I'm coming out of this 4mm round. I'm going to go directly down into this 8/0 seed bead. So I'm not going through this 11/0 on top of it. I'm just going from the 4mm round into this 8/0 right here. We back off just a little bit. That's kind of annoying, I know, I'm sorry. And then, now that I'm coming out of this 8/0, maybe that's a little too far. Let's get just a little closer. And then I can go up into this 4mm round here. So I'm coming out of this 8/0, I go up into this 4mm round bead here, and I can again place my little 11/0 seed beads in between. So I'm just going to pick up an 11/0. I'm going to go down into the next bead here, or not down, but just into the next 4mm round. So I'm going from 4mm round to 4mm round, placing 11/0 seed beads in between them, all the way around all 4 beads on top here. Come here. Okay, that's what that looks like. So now that I'm coming out of this 4mm round, I have to sew all the way around and secure the 11/0s and the 4mm rounds on the top here until I come back out of this bead. So I'm just going to go through all of these beads again, give a little tug as I pull through to make sure I tighten everything together, and just work my way back around. And you can go around as much as you want. You kind of lose track of where you were. Just make sure you know that you've gone all the way around. Just like that. And now we have our little beaded bead. It's kind of a wide hold bead. And this is what it looks like. Now, you can make, for the necklace, 8 of these. And I'll show you how to tie it off in a second here. But you can make 8 of these, or we can go ahead and make 10 and make a pair of earrings. So you're going to need more than, I said 64. If you make 10 of them, you're going to need 16 more beads of your 4mm rounds. So let's go ahead and make 10, and we'll make a pair of earrings to go with this. But right now, we are coming out of this 11/0 seed bead. We're going to go between the 11/0 and the 4mm round, just like this. There's a little thread bridge between those 2 beads. You're going to go underneath it, pull your thread down until it forms a loop, and go through the loop. And then you're going to gently guide that thread down into a knot. Then we're going to go through the next 4mm round and 11/0, and we're going to do that one more time. So we'll go up underneath this thread bridge right here, pull a loop, and pull a knot down. And then I'm just going to go through a couple more beads just to get away from my knot. I'm going to cut this down, leave a small tag, grab my lighter, and just get the heat close to it. Don't light it on fire, and just roll that little piece of thread down into the beads, just like that. And now I have a nice little beaded bead. Go ahead and make 10 of those all together. Each one you will need about an arm's length of thread. So just rethread your needle and go for it. And we'll be back. Okay, so now I have made my 10 little beaded beads, and I'm just going to put 2 aside for earrings, and we'll use the other 8 for the necklace. Of course, like I said, you can use these beaded beads for anything. You don't have to do it the way I'm going to do it, and you don't even have to string the project the way I'm going to string it if you have the stuff I have. So this is just inspiration, or, you know, whatever you want to take it as. So I have got about 22 inches of my beading wire. So this is my soft flex medium, and I've just cut enough to make sure I have enough to go through the ends of my crimp beads and put on my clasping. I'm going to probably make about an 18-inch necklace. So you can cut your beading wire according to the length you want. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 3 11/0 seed beads onto my necklace, and I'm using nickel plate 11/0s. And I'm just going to drop them down to the middle, And then I am going to pick up my bail of my pendant and go through it and drop it down to these seed beads. Of course, it's not going to stay in place, but eventually I would like these 11 O's to stay right underneath that bail. I have it somewhat centered, and I am going to pick up one of my 4mm rounds, and now I have switched to my half black plated beads, my 4mm rounds. You can use the other black ones if you still have plenty, but I have a feeling that I'm going to need more than what I have left, so I've switched to my half plated here. So I'm going to drop these down, and then I'm just going to center it again. So you can see what I have here. I just have my 3 little 11 O's with my 2 4mm on either side, somewhat centered here. And then I am going to pick up a bead cap, I believe. And I'm going to go through the outside of the bead cap. And then I'm going to pick up a cube. And then I'm going to pick up another bead cap, and I'm going to go through the inside of it and drop it down. And I think I'll do the same thing on the other side, of course. Little symmetry here. And I'm going to go through the outside of a bead cap. And then I'm going to drop down a cube. And then I'm going to go through the inside of the bead cap. And of course, you don't even have to use bead caps. You can just put on your beads. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. And then I am going to pick up an 8/0 in nickel, an 8/0 in turquoise, and an 8/0 in nickel, or my blue turquoise there. And I'm going to center again. So what I'm doing, just to kind of keep everything together, is I'm just putting my ends of my wire together like this, and then I'll just pull everything to the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little clip on this side, just to kind of hold things together. I need something to push against when I put on my beaded bead, and I'll show you why. But first, I want another 4mm round. So I've got an 8/0 in nickel, an 8/0 in turquoise, an 8/0 in nickel, and then a 4mm round. Get everything centered here again. And then I'm going to pick up another 8/0. And I'm going to pick up an 8/0 in my nickel and see how well that fits over. They're a little bit bigger than my turquoise ones. So what we're doing with this 8/0 is we're going to put it in the center of our beaded beads to decrease the hole around the beading wire and hold the beaded bead in place. So we're going to string the beaded bead on, and I have this little clamp here so I can hold against it. If you don't have one, you can just hold your beads with your other hand. And I'm just going to kind of push this beaded bead over that 8/0 seed bead, and you can kind of feel it pop in there. And then what that does is it holds the bead in place a little bit better. When we're finished, we will have less gap on the bead, so it'll fall down or whatever. It'll stay in place nicer. And then I am going to pick up a 4mm round, and then I'm going to go to this side. I'm going to recenter things, putting my wire together, and I'll just put the little clamp here, and I'll do the same thing on this side. So I am just going to pick up an 8/0 in my nickel, and then an 8/0 in my blue turquoise, an 8/0 in my nickel, a 4mm round black, and then I'm going to pick up my 8/0, and I'm going to grab a beaded bead, and I'm going to slide it over that 8/0. Now, if your 8/0s aren't fitting in there, try a different 8/0. They're going to be hidden anyway, so it doesn't really matter what color it is. Some 8/0s are bigger than others, so You know, it should slide in there fine. Plus you may be using a more round bead. If you have to, you can put an 11-0 on there and slide it over, or two 11-0s and slide it over. Whatever, you can slide it over so that it will take up that gap between the bead and the wire so that it stays nicely on there. And then I'm going to put another one of my black ones. When I get this all done, these black ones will hug up real close to the beaded beads, and I'll have enough tension on all of it to where they'll look like they're part of the beaded bead, see? And then I'm just going to continue this pattern. So I'm on this side, so I'm just going to stay on this side for now. And I'm going to pick up a 8mm, or an 8mm, yeah, an 8/0 seed bead in nickel, an 8/0 in blue turquoise, and an 8/0 in my nickel. Then a 4mm round, and then a bead cap from the from the outside, and then a cube, and then an 8/0 from the inside, and then a 4mm round. And then I will do the same thing on the other side. So I can just clamp it over. And each time I do this, I'm going to recenter my wire. Just by putting the ends together, recenter it, and then I can clip it off on the opposite side and move over and continue my beading. So I'm going to continue doing this until I have all my beaded beads on, and I will come back and show you what I've got, and then we'll decide what to do on the back to make it go to length, or I'll go to length and I'll show you what I have, one of the two. But I'm going to continue beading and be back in a second. Okay, so now I have finished stringing my entire necklace, doing the pattern I showed you, doing the 4mm round, the cube with the caps on it, and then the 3 little 8/0s in between, and then moving to the beaded bead with the 8/0 underneath it, and then a 4mm round on either side, of course, and then your 3 8/0s, your cap, your crystal, your cap, your 4mm round, your 3 8/0s, the 8/0 underneath the beaded bead, a 4mm round first, and then the 8/0 under the beaded bead, and you're just going to continue that pattern. You're going to continue that pattern until you have 5 cubes and 4 beaded beads on. Once you have that done, then you're going to need just a little bit more length in the back. So I ended with my 5th cube, and then I put on a 4mm round and my combination of 3 8/0s, a 4mm round and my combination of 3 8/0s. This is measuring right at 17 inches when I measure the entire necklace. So by the time I put my clasping on, I will get an 18-inch necklace. Back here, if you need a longer necklace, you will just continue doing your 4mm rounds and your 3 8/0s until you have as much length as you would like. So if you want to make a 20-inch necklace, then you will just continue doing that. You can place it on your bead board and center it on the middle dip 0. So I'll show you here. I'll back off in a second and show you what I've got here. So I'm going to use the outside divot on my bead board. Lay this in. You can use a ruler too, just to see how much length you have also. But I've got this centered here, and you can see I come right to the 9 on either side. Maybe just a little bit under, but right to the 9. So that means 9 inches on this side, 9 inches on this side. That gives me 18 inches. So I'm actually a little under that, as I know it was 17. My beads just spread apart. So what I am here is 8.5 inches on each side. So that gives me a 17-inch necklace. And then once I put my clasping on, I will have about an 18-inch necklace. So that's how you measure that. This is how you will increase or decrease your length in this area also. And then once you have the amount of beads you want, Make sure your necklace is centered on your wires. Clamp off or clip off one side, and then you're going to grab a crimp tube. And I'll get you in closer in a second here. I'm just going to pick up my crimp tube, and I'm going to bring this forward here so you can see. So I've got a little crimp tube on there. And then I'm going to pick up one end of my clasping, and I'm going to drop it down. And then I am going to go through this crimp tube. I can go through my 8/0s also, just because I like to make sure that there's not a little pokey at the end. I find sometimes if I just clip the beading wire off above the crimp tube and I don't put a cover or anything on it, it's got a pokey and it drives my neck nuts. So I'm going to go through these 8/0s because I can. I'm going to hold on to the stable side of the wire, and I'm going to pull down a loop around my clasp, allowing enough room in that loop for movement of my clasp. So right about here, this looks good. Everything's nice and tight, and I can go ahead and grab my crimping tool, and I am going to go into the second divot, the one closest to the handle here. So you've got this little divot, and it's got like a little raised pokey in the middle of it. You're going to place that little raised pokey right between the wires that run through the crimp tube. So I've got my wires, they're not crossed. One is coming up this way, one's going down this way. I'm going to guess where the center of them are. I'm going to center it in my crimping tool, and I'm going to squeeze. And now I have encased both of those wires separately in little tubes here. Now I'm going to take my crimping tool, and in the first divot here, closest to the tip of the plier, I am going to place this crimp tube in sideways so that the two little tubes that are formed around my crimping wire or my beading wire are right next to each other, touching the tool itself. So the crimp bead is sideways in there basically. And then I'm going to squeeze. When I squeeze, that brings those two little tubes together and makes a really nice little crimp. So let's get really close so you can see. And now I can take my scissors, or actually my cutters, and I'm going to get really close to this bead, and I'm going to cut that wire. And now any slack that was there, I can pull out as I take the clamp off the other side. Whoops, I am sorry. Push this down, and that way I can make sure all my beads are tight. I want to make sure that there's no slack down through here. I want everything to hold together, so I just make sure that that's all done. And then I can put my crimp tube on this side, grab my clasp, put it on, and again I'll go through the crimp tube, and I'm going to go through a couple of my 8/0s here. I'm going to grab a hold of the side of the wire that is not moving. So this side is moving as I pull on it. This side is stable. I grab onto it. The reason I do this is it keeps everything from sliding apart, so I don't get a bunch of slack. This is going to hold everything in place. So I just continue to pull on that. When I can no longer hold on to it, I just grab a pair of my chain nose, hold on to it right above that crimp tube. I'll get you even closer so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I'll hold on to it right there and continue to pull until I have a nice little loop here, making sure my wires are not twisted or crossed. I'm just pulling straight down, and that helps by the way you put it inside the bead. You just go straight, make sure you don't cross them, and then once you pull it down the way I just showed you, everything should be fine. Then just compare your loops on either side. This loop is bigger, so I'm going to make this one just a little bit bigger by pulling on my clasp and increasing the size of my loop. Now look at it. Now it's a little bit too big, so I'll just hold on to my beads and pull it in a little bit. Now it's too small until I get Yep, that's pretty good right there. And then I'll crimp it the same way. In the second divot, I will place my crimping tool, centering it on that crimp tube, and then I will turn it sideways. You can see here I've got two little divots on the, or two little tubes with a divot in the middle here. And then I'm going to go to the first divot in my plier, place those two little tubes touching the plier so it's sideways in there, and I'm going to squeeze again. I have a perfect crimp. Now you can just test it, make sure, and then I'm going to grab my cutters. I'm going to get as close to that bead as I can, cut that off, pull on it, any little end should go up inside it, and now I have a really nice little necklace. And let me get it in camera here. And this is what it looks like. I think it turned out really cute. It's a really cute little necklace. So now I'm going to design a little pair of earrings, and we'll come back and do that. Okay, so I have made a very simple little earring to go with my necklace. And what you're going to need, double this of course because I've already made one, you're going to need an ear wire, a head pin, an eye pin, an 8/0 seed bead, 2 bead caps if you want to use them, a cube, and your beaded bead. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up our eye pin, the one with the loop at the bottom, and we are going to, oh, and we need 2 4mm rounds also. So we're going to pick up a 4mm round, and then we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead and drop it on the eye pin here. And then we are going to pick up our beaded bead and slide it over that 8/0 so it holds everything in place, and then pick up a 4mm round. And then you're going to grab some flat nose pliers, and just slightly above that 4mm round, you're going to bend that over, just like that. And then we're going to cut this wire down a little bit. My wire is a short head pin or eye pin, but I still need to cut it down just a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. These are ones I don't usually use, so let's see how well I do with this. And I'm just going to start to turn. And then once I have gone as far as I can, I'm just going to turn my plier over and continue to turn until I make a loop. And yeah, I'm not very good with these pliers, but that's okay. I've been using my other pliers forever. I thought I'd try these, and you know how it is when you switch a tool. Now I'm just going to adjust it. Just like that. So now I have a loop on either side. I'm going to grab an eye pin. I'm going to put on my bead cap, my cube, and my bead cap. And I am going to do basically the same thing. I'm just going to bend this over right on top, just like this. Bend it right over, and then I am going to cut it down to about 1/4 inch and grab these pliers that I don't like and make sure my wire is flush with the pliers here and begin to turn. Turn as far as I can, and then I'll just turn my plier over and continue to turn. I'll take it out and close it a little bit like this, and this is what you should have. Now I'm going to open one side of this one, just like this. Just lift it up and open it. Drop this one on, and then I just keep getting my bead mat and my pliers here, and then I'm going to close it the same way I opened it. And then I'm going to grab an ear wire, and I'm going to open it. You can look and see what side is open, and just lift it up and then pop it on the earring, and there you have it. Very simple set of earrings, and goes really cute with this guy. Let me clean up my bead mat a little bit here and arrange things, and I'll show you what it looks like. There you have it, a cute little necklace and earring set. And these little beaded beads, like I said, are very versatile. You can use them in all kinds of designs. So use different colors and play with them. They're very fast, very easy to make, and they're cute. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.